Welcome back, this is Jason Seacrest. We are going to finish up our ghost character today. We have already done all of the inking, we have already done all of the brushwork, so we have completed all of our first initial steps. So if this is your first time jumping over and seeing the ghost, we have done this step by step. What we are going to do in this tutorial is finish them up. It's actually going to be very quick since we have done most of the heavy lifting already, and we are going to color them up. So let's just recap quickly in case this isn't the same day. At the end of the last video, we basically did live paint. We filled in kind of those solid areas. We then, at the very end, we basically united in all of our black. So what we are going to do right now is we are going to need our swatches. So I'm going to come up to the top and go File, Place. And again, wherever you have saved all of your stuff, we are going to go into the color palette folder, and what I am looking for is our Neon Ghost. I'm going to click on Place, and then I can just shrink that up. Again, I'm on the black arrow, by the way. So I'm just going to plop it right down there, and what I'm also going to be looking for is our swatches. If I don't see it, which I do, it is always under Window, so just go to Window. If there's anything you never or couldn't find, just go under Window. No big deal. So Pathfinder might not be on the essentials. So again, it's under Windows. And all we're going to do is this. Very simple. I'm just going to drag that down. Let's create a new color group. I'm just going to call this one Ghost. I'm going to click on eye and or our eyedropper. So eyedropper is right there. If you've done it in Photoshop, basically the exact same process. It's very simple. All we're doing is dragging in each one of our colors. Now you're going to notice that we have a blue, and then we have our greens, and our goal here is to basically have, I definitely want more for the green. We might be okay with that blue. Let me just drag it down. Alright, so I'm going to double click, and we're going to actually get two more for our lighter values. Just click, drag, double click again, and this one should be almost white, so that's going to be our highlight. Click and drag. Now I'm going to grab our blue here, double click. I just want something a little bit lighter, kind of more for our highlight. And we can always add on, so it's actually very simple to add on to it. So I've got 4, I've got even more than that. We still have our white. I think that should be good to go. So I'm just going to take our little swatches. I am done with those swatches. I think we can, let's just keep them up here. Alright, so first things first, under Magic Wand, just double check that you have tolerance as 5, especially as we start getting into multiple values. You just want this tolerance to be pretty low. The default is usually like a 32. So I am going to click on our blacks, and that is going to be our dark blue. Alright, next I am just going to come to the top. Let's just do it simple, select all. I am now going to be doing our live paint. So under Object, I am going to drop down to where it says Live Paint. I'm going to Make. And what Live Paint will do is that, well, one, it'll color it in a very quick way. The other one will be, it will actually create the shapes that we need, and we can actually edit those shapes. So I like that it's actually doing two things all at the same time, and the only reason that this would not work is just notice that everything is enclosed. So if you have really airy line work, this doesn't necessarily work as well. I will be honest, it doesn't work at all really. And all I'm going to do is fill in some flat colors first. We can always modify it. I think this will be our blue. Let's just do a mid blue for that tongue. Okay, looking good. Oh, I think we'll keep it white. Let's keep those white. I'm going to click on K. Let's just do white. Then it's easier to see. So notice that everything is selected. I've got my weird icons, so I definitely want to make sure we expand. We basically only really need to expand the object, and then we do want to ungroup, and usually the magic number is 3 times. Ungroup, ungroup, ungroup. So our goal is, can we select individual shapes? So once we can get to that level, then we are good. So this is what we are going to do. I do want to save this one, but I want to duplicate it out, and then we're going to basically start to break up this layer. So what I want to do is get all of our really dark area. I want our line work and our brushes that have been united on its own layer. So I'm going to go Control X. Let's just hide this one. So basically I've just got that one on this layer now. New layer above. I'm just going to select it and then we'll paste it first. Control F. So just double check that it pasted here. And then I will say, let's just call this one line work. So this one is good to go. Just to see what we have, all of our brushes, all of our lines, all of our darks are all on the same layer. It is nice and clean, and it has now been locked out. Next, I'm going to turn on our flat color. We're going to duplicate this while we have it. We're just going to duplicate it. So I'm going to duplicate it once, and then I'm going to duplicate it a second time, and then we're going to label them so it makes sense. This top layer is going to be our transparent gradients, so I'm just going to label it gradients for right now. I'm going to lock it out, and then I'm going to hide it. This layer I'm going to call shadows. So we're going to actually be working on our shadow layer. I'm just double clicking, and let's just call this one flat color. So I'm going to lock that guy out, but I still want to be able to see it. So I want to select my shadow layer. So let's just double check that just so I don't go too fast. Line work has been, we can see it, it's locked out. I have my shadow layer selected. It is not locked out, and then basically all of my other ones are all locked out. So my light source is going to be coming from this upper left-hand corner. So we are going to start to cut out some shadows. We are also going to start to cut out some of the highlights. So the first thing I want to do is I'm just going to grab, with my magic wand, I'm going to grab all of our light here, and I'm just going to bump it up 1. And it's going to make sense right now. So what we are going to do is come into underneath our eraser. I am looking for this knife tool. So again, double check your eraser. Now the knife tool, let me just scroll down, looks eerily similar to your slice tool. Now the slice tool is for your artboards. That is not what we were talking about. So again, find your eraser, find your scissor tool, and then your knife tool, and that is going to be what we are going to be using. So let's just do this back here. I want basically a highlight, and then it's actually going to wrap around. Is it refracted? Is that the term I'm seeking? And with our, let me just zoom in so you guys can see what we are doing. Our goal is to go all the way through this shape. So notice that I have my black arrow. Step number 1 is to select the shape. So I'm selecting on this face color, by the way. That's the only thing we can select. I'm going to come over to my knife, and it's going to let us know where that shape is. And then I'm just going to draw. And my goal is to go all the way through it. I would recommend going nice and slow. Notice that I am trying to hide within the stroke. So if I go all the way through, what our process is going to be is this. And this is what everyone's going to forget, I can already tell. We're going to take our black arrow, so I clicked on V. I'm just going to click anywhere on the artboard. I'm then going to come back. I'm going to select that shape, and then I'm just going to click on delete and or backspace. So notice that it's going to be our color. What that is doing is I'm actually hacking out my shadows, and it's shining through to that flat color layer. Alright, let's do the same thing on the other side of the face. Now remember our process. I'm going to select the shape first. I'm going to come over to our knife tool. You're going to see all of our points, by the way. And for this one, I am going to do multiples together. And why I like this knife tool is it's going to prevent us from having to do anything dealing with the Pathfinder. Let's just zoom in. Again, this is still selected. Knife. So just notice that I'm trying to deliberately overlap. Nice and smooth. Sometimes when you zoom in, by the way, it does get a little bit choppier. I'm just going to go straight through here. So notice all of our little crisscrossing. I'm going to go right into our finger. And while we have you down here, let's do one right into that hand. If you wanted to get really picky, you might want to do it right there. So let's do this. I'm again black arrow, V. I'm going to deselect. Now if everything worked out nicely, I should just be able to come in, grab that shape, and then if I hit delete, it should just go on that little side. Now when I deselect, what we're actually doing is, while we cut it, everything is still selected. So that is why we want to deselect first and then do that. Now why we're also deleting is I think it's easier to edit when they're not all on the same layer. If for some odd reason you are one of those people just like myself that hate all of these little extra lines, I have my shape. It is now selected. I'm going to come over to Pathfinder and then I can just click on Unite and those will go away. So it will be a little bit easier to adjust these. I'm just doing, this is my convert by the way, so I want this to be a little bit straighter. Now if you don't delete, in a lot of the other videos, you might have seen that all we're really doing is just recoloring. A lot of times you'll actually be fighting one color versus the other because they're all going to be right there next to each other. So you might want to just give this a test. It's another little option for you. Again, all we're really doing is trying to give you some options here. I'm going to do most of these highlights on the body, and then we're going to come back in and do some of these shadows. So this is going to go pretty quick now that we got the process. So with this hand, what I'm going to do is I am going to grab all of our little shapes. I think I have them all. We're going to find out real quick. So what I'm looking for is do all of our shapes line up, go all the way through the shape. If it's not perfect, no biggie, you can always go Control Z, do it again. All the way through the top, nice and smooth. This one will be pretty just on that far side. And I want one that's going underneath. I might just leave a little bit of a gap. There is going to be a shadow right here, so notice that I didn't go all the way to the end. Alright, again, I'm going to click on V or my black arrow. Just click anywhere on your artboard. Let's just hold down Shift. Click on delete and all of our little things go away. If again anything big chunks go away, before you click the delete, you should be able to see those edges. But you just want to make sure that just Control Z and then just go back and clean up the ones that you missed. Typically it's because you didn't go all the way through the shape. So as long as you are deselecting, the tendency is basically that you just didn't go all the way through the shape. So let's do this hand. So some of you might be able to see that little bounce. I might not take the time right now in this tutorial, but we can definitely clean those up. What I want to do is take this shoulder. Let's do one through this top shoulder. Whenever you zoom in, I find that you get way more of that bouncing effect, which I'm not a fan of. Okay, black arrow, deselect. Click, click, click. So that's just minus, by the way. So I'm on my white arrow, and I'm just seeing what's funky about the curve, and then I can just clean up the curve. That's it. So I want a little bit more showing. Good. Let's do belly. Let's do his rump. I just want a little bit of a one up at the top here. Good, and I'll do one at the belly. Select the shape. All the way through. Again, black arrow, deselect, and then just come on over. Now let me, just so you can, let's do the oops, shall we? Just so you can see why the heck we're deselecting. So if I go all the way through it, some of you have already been able to tell and figured this one out, that if I don't deselect, notice that nothing is happening. So if I click on delete, everything goes away. Everything is still selected. So if I'm here, deselect, then I'm selecting, notice that all that is now not selected, and now I can delete that individual shape. You're like, there's a reasoning for everything. Alright, so I think highlights are good. What we want to do is add in some shadows on the teeth and the eyeballs, the tongue, and then we are also going to do some cast shadows under these fingers and under this arm by that body, and then we are good. And then we're going to actually start doing our gradients, and then we're all done. Super easy. Now we are going to change this a little bit, and that just means that I'm going to keep the colors as is. We're not going to be deleting. If you want to delete, you're more than welcome to, but I think it will keep our lives a little bit easier right now. So I'm going to go all the way through. I'm trying to just follow the same thing. So the shape above that would be casting the shadow. I'm trying to keep that pretty similar. Notice that I deselected right there. So instead of deleting, I'm just going to come in and color it. Let's do the same thing with our tongue. I selected it. Now I want it to be a little bit dark on the back part of the tongue. Deselect. And then all we're doing is kind of that up one. Now what I might want to do is, let's grab this front part, and I'm going to actually make it a little bit lighter. So I don't want it to be the exact same as the mouth. Alright, I'm going to grab this face shape, and I actually want a little bit of a darker, going right through that bag of the eye. So as long as I go through, I think we should be okay. I say we're going to go that color, good. Alright, let's start adding on some shadows. So I'm going to grab this palm, and we are going to start casting some shadows of those fingers. So just a nice little swoop. And go right under. Back in. I'm just seeing if there's anything else I would want. Let's do this arm while we have it selected. So I'm just following that shape of the belly, by the way. Black arrow, deselect. Now whenever you're doing this, you might be able to see it. I zoom in, that this might have connected on yours. So just depending on how close this line extended into your finger, you might need to draw an extra little line. So all you would need to do is, notice where this one is, you would actually just do another knife tool, and then you would just finish it. So if this whole part, and or if this is flowing into this finger, and you're not able to color those, right, so it doesn't stop, you'll be able to tell real quick, because this color will flow into your finger. So if you say, hey, I don't want that, more than likely it was just missing. So I'm going to actually cast a shadow on that finger behind. Let's just pop one right there. Let's just zoom in so I can grab it. Grab the palm. Notice right here under that middle finger that it did stop it. So I shouldn't have to do any random little shapes. Let's see if there's anything. I might want one. Let's put a nice little shadow right through there. And again, if there's any of those little crisscrosses and you say, hey, I don't like these crisscrosses, just select them, come over to Pathfinder, and then just unite them, and then those will disappear for you. Alright, grab that belly, and now we are looking to add a cast shadow for that arm. Deselect, come on back. Good. I want a little bit of shadow happening on the top part here. So again, I'm just going to follow my hand around. Let's go right into that crease. Grab it. There might be a little one right there. So when we color it, let's look. Yep. So notice there's this little tiny sliver. So if you go too far on some things, there will be an extra little one. And you can still color it, no big deal. Now I'm uniting, so I'm just uniting that little sliver with the other one. Control 0. I'm just doing a last little check. I think I want a shadow happening on this back part of the tail. And then we're going to do a save check. Let me just zoom in so we don't miss it. So notice that that shape is still selected. I'm just doing a nice little S-curve. Good. I'm okay with that. Let's color it up. Control 0. Let's go File Save. If you guys want to get fancy, let's do one. I'm going to grab this face. Let's do a little cast shadow for that tooth. Just getting fancy on you. That's all that was. Good. I'm grabbing the green. So notice there's that little overlap, and then I'm uniting. Oh, just getting fancy on you. Control 0. Oh, adorable. We are just going to be adding on our gradients now, and our life is very, very easy from this point forward. So I'm going to come into our layers. So that was the shadows. I'm going to lock that guy out. I'm going to come back in. Now notice when I do my gradients, everything's going to disappear. I'm going to unlock it, and then I'm going to select it. So notice that it says gradients, it's blue. So I'm going to hide that guy. Let's click on our gradient. Let's just pull that out so you can see it. Now first thing, let's do our body, so it all makes sense very quickly here. Now the first thing I want to do is notice that I did Magic Wand. I selected just my green. And just before you go too crazy, just double check that it didn't grab your eyeballs or anything like that. Alright, so we have Magic Wand, green. And what I want to do is just click on the gradient. So things that we are looking for is just notice that all those individual shapes that helped us before are now getting some weird shadows. And they may or may not be weird. It just depends on if you want to have this all be one and or if you want to just change the direction of it. So what we are going to do, those aren't that bad to be honest with you. What I think, let me just test it. I'm going to grab my gradient tool, and what I might want to test out is if we just switch the direction. I just want to see if I'm happy with that. That doesn't bother me too much. I'm going to keep it. Now for this one, it does bother me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically grab everything, and I want this to be one big solid gradient. So I'm going to come up to the top. It's going to sound complicated, but it's super easy. So compound path just means all of those individual shapes are going to be the same. So I'm just going to click on make, and what I want you to do is just pay attention to those fingers. So this gradient will go over all of that shape. So if I wanted to do that over here, you would just miss out on those highlights. So I kind of like those highlights, how they're playing out right now. Now we can have some fun. So I'm going to grab all of them. I'm just holding down shift, by the way. You could totally do magic wand. And now we want to change up these colors because we are not going to stay black with it. Alright, I think for our dark, let's do dark green first. I'm just going to select my white. So I'm just double clicking, by the way. And let's just see if I can, let's do the neon for right now. So I've got not the highlight, but the one up, and then I've got a pretty dark one. Now we get to make them transparent. So just pay attention to right now it is 100% opaque, so you can't see through it. So I'm going to go 20%, and I can also adjust it here. I am not too concerned with that. That looks pretty decent. So now it's just fielder's choice, right? However dark I want it. And you'll notice as we keep making them more and more transparent, one, the brighter he's going to get. So if you want a really, really bright ghost, and or if you don't want him to be as bright green, then you could drop these down. If you ever get an extra one, you can just drag it off, by the way. So I'm just selecting it. 10%. The more transparent this is, again, the more those bottom layers will punch through. Alright, that looks pretty good. I'm okay with the green. So what I'm going to do is grab this tongue. I'm going to select it. I'm going to come up to the top. I want that to be radial, but I don't want it to be green. So I am going to select our light blue, dark blue, and it's right now going to go right in the middle. So I'm going to come over to our gradient tool. I'm going to select it. You're going to get this nice little circle. And then you can just place where you want your highlight to go. Again, we kept the same transparency. If you want them to be more or less transparent, just grab it and then you can always just select the color you want. So if I wanted that back of the tongue to be darker, I can just bump that up. So let's do 100 just so you can see. So notice that that back of the tongue is kind of fading into the back of the mouth. Looks pretty awesome, not gonna lie. I kind of like it. Alright, grab those eyeballs. I'm gonna select it. We're gonna go pretty white with these. Again, it's radial, so I want my highlight to be nice and white. I'm gonna double click. I'm gonna be, and then we're just going to play around with opacity. Let's keep it right there. Again, let's click on our gradient tool, and then we can modify where we want that highlight to go. So since we said upper left, we want it to be pretty close to upper left, and I can always grab this far one and then drag it out. So notice this part of the eyeball, how it's kind of getting a little bit sharp. I can always drag that out just so you can't see it. If you like it, keep it. Super easy. Alright, let's do a file save, because all we are going to do is some really, really easy stuff right now. And maybe if I keep calling things easy, you guys will believe it. You guys are like, we're not falling for it. Alright, so in our layers, now we do have this, everything's locked out. Let's just lock all of these top ones out. I do have this brushes, and this brushes one should have all of our color. So if I click on it, that was all of our initial colors, so I'm going to duplicate this one. And the only reason I'm duplicating it, by the way, I'm just going to call this one background, is just in case I ever wanted to go back, I still want this brushes copy. So what we're going to do is unlock this one, and I'm going to click on our little, select everything in that layer. Now everything is filled, by the way, so when I come over to Unite, what I'm looking for is a silhouette. And this could be green, so whatever your last color was, it will probably pick up. Now what you are looking for is any random little strays that are happening inside your character. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to color this one our green. I'm going to go Control 0. I'm just going to zoom out a tiny bit. And we literally have maybe a minute left. How sad. I am going to drag out a big old rectangle. I'm going to actually color this one our dark blue. I'm going to right click, arrange, send to back. And why I did that first is so you can see what this process is. So I'm going to select our green. Up at the top, we're going to go Effects, drop down to Stylize, and then I am looking for an outer glow. And then you could pick on whatever. And it depends on if you want it to be more yellowy. I do want it to be pretty similar to what we've been using. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to click on Preview, and I just want to see if it's out as far as I want. I think I'm going to click on, let's do 0.1 first. I think that's kind of where I want it. Let's do 0.15 just for sake. Alright, that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to click on OK. Realistically, you could keep this shape here. So when we do this next step, you really don't necessarily need to do anything. I'm just going to go to Object. I'm going to click on Expand. And then I'm going to ungroup. So I just have that inner shape, or that green, and then I can click on Delete. So I just have my glow. Again, you don't necessarily have to delete it. And then I'm just going to start doing the reveal, show up all of our layers. Let's hide that. Let's go File, Save. Let's do a little bit of a digital high five. You guys are good to go. So again, we are all done. We are going to continue doing some more Halloween themed tutorials. We got a bunch coming this week and next. If you guys are going all the way through the tutorials, definitely give me a thumbs up. Definitely subscribe. Definitely put in the comments what you would like to see more of and or what you're struggling with. And as I keep adding on more full tutorials and as I keep on adding to our Just the Tips, I know what I can be focusing on. So that helps out quite a bit. So other than that, I think we had some fun today, and I will see you on the next tutorial.